Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Within Range Coaching Podcast. I'm Ranger, a certified holistic success coach, and in this podcast, I break down the journey entrepreneurs face as they start their organizations, overcome roadblocks in their way, and create an impact that lasts. We talk with entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, and purpose-driven community members just like you. Together, we learn how to grow our impact and develop ourselves as the people behind the mission. My intention is to help more people. And remember, if you're curious about expanding your impact, growing a community, or defining your mission, vision, or values, we can chat off the record. You can find my info in the show notes or at my website, withinrangecoaching.com. We're also looking to build our sponsor community with organizations and individuals who align with our values of fearless innovation, social responsibility, and courageous candor. If you're interested in helping us highlight individuals doing great work in the world and share these values, reach out to me directly at ranger@withinrangecoaching.com. I know you're just as eager to get started as I am, so let's jump right in. Welcome to another episode of the Within Range Coaching Podcast. In today's episode, we're joined by Star Rayburn, an expert in software development and business management who shares valuable insights into the intersection of both of those fields. We'll explore the challenges of managing tech projects, the importance of long-term vision in business, and the crucial role of respecting and valuing your employees and their time. If you've ever wondered how to balance productivity and employee satisfaction, or how to plan your company for sustainable growth, this episode is for you. Let's jump right in. I'm continuing on with my Walk Across America series where I am highlighting the nonprofit leaders, entrepreneurs, and community members that I meet along my way that in some way, shape, or form have helped me along my journey. And today we have a guest that has been so helpful and impactful on my journey. Especially getting into the good old city of Amarillo here in Texas. We're recording from Texas right now before I start my journey and my little jaunt through New Mexico and the hot states. So by the time you hear this, I will be somewhere in the middle of Arizona or New Mexico. But instead of focusing too much on that, I'm going to hang out with my new good friend and owner of Skylabs Technology, which is a software development firm based out of Amarillo, Texas, Star Rayburn. Star, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for taking the time to hang out with us today. And Star, I have never had a software or tech or anything like that business on the podcast just yet. And I know that we have a very specific topic of discussion for today that's a little bit different than what people may think. But before we jump too straight into today's topic, could you just give us a quick introduction of who you are and what your intention for today's episode is?
Sure. As you said, I'm Star Rayburn, run Skylabs Technology that does software development and primarily focused on web and mobile applications. We also build backends for all sorts of companies throughout the area and across all of America. So the main things that I wanted to focus on today is why did I start a business and where do we see business going over the next few years? You and I are both young. A lot of the businesses that we see we are run by older individuals who have their own kind of perceptions of how employees should act. And I think what I'm trying to do is kind of turn that on their head a little bit as I see the younger generation coming up and what their expectations are. So we've had a lot of success in the way that we run our company and just kind of want to share that with everybody else to see maybe we can shift the view of work inside of America.
Yeah, which I think is such an interesting topic, especially like you're saying, as these generations kind of flip and was like the baby boomers, they start to retire, they start to leave the business world. Like, it's really up to the millennials, the Gen Zers that are coming up to find what works best for us and what works best for the industries that we go into overall. And I think that employee-employer relations are going to be one of those biggest factors that determine the success of a business moving forward. And I think that's such a valuable conversation to have. I mean, I don't have any employees right now myself, but in the next, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I can definitely see Within Range kind of bringing on more folks. So I'm really excited to hear what your guys' take is on like hours and compensation and how all of that really works beyond just the numbers.
Yeah, definitely. And I think from my perspective, I'm someone who, I graduated high school in 2006. It was right before the housing market crash. So we had like a really hard time finding work. I'm originally actually from Arizona, so I'm sorry that you're walking through there during the summer. But because the industry was so difficult to get into, and actually was not doing software development when I got out of school, I had to jump around jobs. And so I had a lot of experience as a worker in a lot of different industries. When I got my first tech job, I was working for a pharmaceutical company, and it was awesome. The environment was really cool. Everyone was super helpful. It was privately owned. I could go and walk up to the CEO's office and sit down and have a glass of whiskey with him if I wanted to, and he was really open and cool. And then a few years into doing that, he sold off the company because he was getting older. And he had a really strong view of like employee-employer relationship. He wanted to make sure that if you stayed there, you were getting paid, you were getting compensated. They worked hard and they played hard, and the company supported that. When corporate came in, they like destroyed all of that environment. And I think that was something that was extremely difficult for me to see. And it's a big reason that I jumped off and started my own company. I think that talking with the younger generation and what they expect out of work, I think there's this expectation of, I have a life outside of work and I will work for you and I'll work hard, but your money doesn't give you a right to own my life. And I think that, especially in a corporate structure, there is that where I'm a salaried employee, but if you have to work 60 hours, that's just what you do because it's part of your job. And I really disagree with that viewpoint. So some of the steps that I've taken to kind of mitigate that is we as a company don't offer any PTO. We treat everyone as adults. So I guess instead of no PTO, it's unlimited PTO. So if you feel like you don't want to come into work that day, you want to do something else, that's fine. As long as you're keeping up with your work and you're being responsible and communicating, we treat you like a brother, like, hey, I can't come over today. Oh, no worries. Let's do it next week. Okay. So I think that there's what that lends us. And because of the industry, I do have the ability to not have someone come in and it's not going to kill me. We also have like the luxury of saying things like, hey, if you want to work 4 hours a day, every day out of the week, that's fine. We've also implemented things like 32 to 34 hour work weeks. What we've seen with that is basically increase in productivity, where people feel like they have less time to get things done. So when they come in, they're ready and they're going to sit down, work extremely hard to get the things done that they need to do so that they don't have to work late. They don't have to do the things that they need to do. And when I lend that opportunity for people to be able to create their own work hours, to do things like take off any time that they want, and to spend time with their families. It lends us or gives us the ability to ask them, hey, we have meetings that are outside of your scheduled time. Would you mind coming in? And they'll work harder and want to facilitate that for you because you're doing the same for them. And so I think the way that I've seen companies view employees and the way I try to view employees is very different, just because we don't really need a business who is going to see you as an item that they can use is not going to be able to sustain a lifestyle over a long period of time. You know, we're seeing generations switch jobs every 2 to 3 years. In fact, when I first started software development, one of my first mentors I had, he was a senior software developer at Google. And this guy told me, hey, go and get a job, work there for 1 year, move. Okay, get that job, move again, because that's how you make more money. You know, you're going to start at $65,000. You're going to move, you're going to make 80. You're going to move, you're going to make 100. You're going to move, you're going to make 125. Because if you stay in a single location, they don't see value in you. And he said, you know, what's crazy is I wanted to work at Google. I got a job here. I asked for more money. They said no. So I left. I went and worked for Microsoft for 2 years, and I came back and I got more money than I originally asked from Google. And he said, it's ridiculous to me that a business doesn't see any value in you staying. And I think you can see that through the way they treat employees, the way they, like, their policies that they put in place, these ideas of, you know, minimum raises, like a 1%, 3% raise that doesn't cover even inflation. I mean, that to me is unacceptable. And I think it's what we're trying to fight and try to stay really conscious of. Talking about raises, we try to look at first, everybody gets a inflation raise, because you shouldn't have to pay to work somewhere. Because truly, if you don't make inflation, then you're paying money to work somewhere. So that's like our first step. And then we look at how did you do as an employee, and we'll give you an additional percentage on top of the inflation raise. So those are some of the things that I try to focus on as far as dealing with my employees. And again, you know, my employees will stay with me. You know, I've owned my company now for 5 years, and I've had one employee that has stayed with me for 3.5 years, and he basically got hired in, and that's where he is. We've never lost a single employee. We're just continually growing. I think really, you know, the things that I want to stress to anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur or is an entrepreneur is recognize that your company is yours, right? It's your baby. So you saying, I'm willing to come in and work all these extra hours, that makes sense because it's your brainchild, right? The people that work for you, you should not expect that out of them. They're here to do a job, and they're going to do their job well. But if you're trying to push your views and feelings on them based on like how you want your business to be successful, and you want people to work really hard, that's not a motivation for them. They don't have the same type of view of the company. It's a job for them, you know, because if they wanted to have that same type of view, they would go and start their own company. But not everybody is an entrepreneur like you. So make sure that you're being really conscious of that. Ensure that you're treating your employees with respect and treating them like adults, like they are. Because the more you treat them like children, the more they'll act like children. you know?
Yeah, and that's such an interesting thing to bring up too, is because I mean, oh my goodness, on all of these, when I was on the job hunt, it's, we're looking for someone with an entrepreneurial mindset. It's like, no, one, no, you're not. You're looking for certain qualities that could be shared between those two. But if someone's an entrepreneur, like a true, they're going to want to start their own thing. They're not going to necessarily want to work for someone. And I think that's a very valuable thing to bring up, is that when it comes to your business, nobody's going to care about it as much as you do.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody cares about it more than you do, like, there's a problem there.
Right.
That it's not aligning with your values or what you want to do, or I guess that's a whole other podcast potentially, right? Or another episode. Welcome to the mountaintop. Are you an entrepreneur or nonprofit leader ready to make a bigger impact in the world, but aren't quite sure how to do it or even where to start? Then join the Never Peak community on School, where bold movers, shakers, and magic makers come together to achieve their dreams and support others on the way to theirs. Our goal is to help leaders change the world by first focusing on themselves, by fostering a community rooted in support and learning. My goal is to help you be more effective in your organization, achieve your biggest dreams, and make time for what really matters in your life. In Never Peak, you'll find weekly book clubs, engaging courses, weekly mastermind calls, monthly Q&As with industry experts, and networking opportunities that span the globe. Our courses and discussions cover essential topics like personal finance, work-life balance, goal setting, relationship building, business topics, and so much more. Each course is designed to support you to holistically grow yourself as the person behind the mission. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to mention. At the time of recording this, the community is completely free. That's right, you can get started for $0 down, but that won't last for long. All you need to do is go to school.com, that's SKOOL.com/never-peak, or hit the link in the show notes to claim your spot on the mountain. Again, be sure you get in now, because I cannot wait to see you there and witness the peaks you'll reach in just a few weeks. In terms of the success that you've seen with your employee, with giving them these benefits, the unlimited PTO, the flexible work hours, it sounds like you're a lot more results and product driven in terms of, hey, this is what these from what I can kind of hear in our previous conversations, you looked at it more so as, okay, this is what I need out of an employee. This is the product that I need. I'm going to hire someone that can do those things, rather than I need a warm body that can work 40 plus hours a week. Like, what is that differentiation between being, I guess, outcome driven versus time driven?
Yeah, well, even in any company, you can see there are certain employees that are going to be more proficient than other employees. And I think recognizing that a person who is proficient shouldn't get more work as the benefit, right? Like, hey, congratulations, you did such a great job today. Here's more responsibility with no pay, right? That's kind of an easy thing to do. And when I'm consulting with other firms that I work with, that's one thing that I talk with management about. Hey, just because these people are doing a really good job, don't give them more work with no benefit. Make sure that you are giving them not either you are reducing or giving them more flexibility, or you're compensating them in money. So money, time, benefits, those are the things that you can do to say, hey, if you do this extra thing, we'll give you a half day on Friday. I think that's like a benefit that people will say, well, cool. Like, I was just doing what I thought I should be doing. And look, I get all this extra, this extra benefit. And I think, like, for me, and again, this kind of goes back to my industry, it allows for the ability to have a production driven employment line, right? So I have X amount of tasks that I need them to get done in a specific amount of time. If they're done with that, sure. Is there other stuff I could have them do? Yeah. But are they doing busy work at that point? Maybe. And from my perspective, I kind of look at each individual person I work with and say, what do I think they can get done? Not what can I get done and then give that to them, but like learning your employees, understanding what their capacity is, and then giving them things they can be successful in. Because I think one thing that I struggled with at the last company I was at was that I didn't feel like I could be successful. And that was really discouraging, where I got to the point where I was like, I don't even want to go into work today. Not because I don't feel good or anything, but it's just it's not fun anymore. And like, I think jobs should be entertaining, fun to do. I should enjoy what I do. And if I didn't, I could go and get a minimum wage job working somewhere and just do that. But like, for me, it's really important to enjoy what I do 40 to 60 hours a week. So when I jumped off and started my own company, I took a huge pay cut. That's okay though to me, because the quality of work is much better. I can pick and choose what I want to do. And I think those benefits outweigh just like value in dollars. Another thing like about employees and the new generation coming up is this a gig economy structure where everybody's working 4 jobs, but they only work like 10 hours a week doing them, or passive income. So they're all looking for ways to not have to work. So, and they will be successful in it. Like it's not this idea of, well, that's just a fad. This is the future for us, how I view it. It's this gig economy. It's the structure of how can I increase the time that I get to do what I want while making enough money to get by. And I think there are still people that are money driven, but I think at the end of the day, a majority of people will stay somewhere where quality of life and quality of work come together beautifully. So it's where I try to focus on, I try to focus on that aspect when I'm dealing with employees.
Yeah, and there's a few different things there that I want to kind of highlight. There's the gig economy aspect, and then value beyond money. And with the gig, I guess, economy or mindset or whatever you want to call it, I feel like, TikTok, social media, one of the good things / we can get into that in a second, I guess, but it's showing people that there's more opportunity and possibility out there than just the status quo of work 40 hours plus a week for the next 40 years, and then maybe you'll retire and then you get to sit at home, right? Like there's a whole dream, there's a whole, I guess, vision that's kind of sold with that. It's not just invest your money here and make passive income. It's so that you can blank. And there's so much more to it than just surviving, which again, is very different than what it was 100, 200, 300 years ago.
Sure.
We're not just
even
surviving
50 years
anymore.
ago.
Yeah, even not that many years ago.
Right.
It's like it's not just about surviving, it's really about thriving. Like, what does it mean to work? And I think with the rise, maybe you can speak to this more, with technology, with artificial intelligence, like there's certain tasks that are automated now, that now we can start focusing on true actualization and what we really want out of being alive than just making enough to make rent and survive. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely think that there's a lot to unpack there. We have, I think, kind of the way of the future as I see it is eventually we'll probably all get on universal basic income, because at some point AI or there's not going to be enough jobs for us, whether that's 100 years in the future, 200 years in the future, 20 years in the future. It's going to happen. And so I think instead of pushing back, I think we need to embrace it and start to shift and mold the way we do business, the way we view life, and not to say there isn't like value in work, because I think at the core, humans want to be productive. They want to have something to do, because nobody wants to sit around their house all day and watch TV. Because even people that are doing, like, I'm going to sit in my room and play video games all day, they're sitting in their room playing video games, being social and feeling productive. That's why they play those types of games, right? So I think when we're looking at the way we structure business for the future, we have to recognize the fact that pay is like a true piece of your puzzle, but there's also, like, if you can provide a way that people get to, like, honestly, I had one of my employees went skydiving on Thursday, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to go skydiving today." And I was like, "Okay, cool. That sounds fun. That sounds terrifying to me, but sure." And I think him having the opportunity in which he gets to go and do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, as long as he, like, wraps up his work by the end of the week and says, like, he puts a button on it and says, like, "Okay, I'm done." Then that, to me, provides so much value. I think the way of the world is, technology. And it's kind of interesting, based around technology and being a software development company. A lot of people are worried about AI taking over their jobs. And if your job is literally just development all day, then, I mean, I've never had a job like that. A majority of it is sitting in meetings, understanding how the business works. And I think there's always going to be an increase increase in necessity for other types of jobs. And, like, instead of trying to push back on change or, like, say, well, you need to protect this, you need to protect that, I think I try to embrace whatever's coming and say, if ChatGPT is going to write code in the future, then what we need to do is we need to start using ChatGPT to increase our productivity so we don't have to work as long, right? Because then I get to go and do something that I want to do that's outside of work. And I don't know. I don't see value in busy work, if that makes sense. Like, there are some things that have to be done, but I don't want to try to keep someone here doing something for no reason. And I don't know if maybe it's just the industry I'm in, and maybe it's just who I am as a person, but that kind of stuff frustrates me. And I think what really drove me to become an entrepreneur is I identified problems. I saw things that were affecting my day-to-day life. The last 4 months I was there, I was on a phone call for 3 weeks straight. Like, I slept on the phone. And when, like, it all was over, because I understood, hey, this stuff is happening. I'm the person that can fix it. What are we going to do? Let's get it done. And that was fulfilling to me to some degree. But when it was done, there was no compensation. Like, what did I get? They offered me a piddly raise. They didn't understand that they just took, over 400 hours of my time away from me that they're not paying me for because I'm salaried. Like I don't understand where they think that's okay. And when quality of life gets trumped by the job, I think that that's where people and where the younger generation, the younger generation did not have the same work, even in a minimum wage job that we did. Like me, I'm 35, and a minimum wage job, it wasn't good money by any means, but it was definitely better than it is today. You know, working at a minimum wage job now, you work 40 hours and you probably can't even pay rent. You know, so now you're going to work a minimum wage job with three other people, and you guys are going to live in a tiny confined space that's impossible for you to do anything, be creative, get the rest you need, be able to study and go to school. Like, I feel like we're setting our younger generation up with impossible feats and tasks. And it's kind of why they're moving into that like gig economy type structure where they're like, you know what? I'll just go and work at Uber for 20 hours and I make more money in Uber in 20 hours than I did working at Walmart, you know, or McDonald's.
Yeah.
And I think we just have to be really conscious of that, you know?
Yeah. And I think it's just, again, that's just showing that there's, it sounds like we're kind of backed into a different corner than other generations were. Like right now, it's a lot of it is minimum wage just is impossible to live off of in some case, in most cases, probably all of them, honestly. But it's like, it's being able to move into and seeing that possibility like of Uber, of these other aspects that can actually move you forward in some way, shape, or form, which I think is so interesting. Like seeing like at the last job that I had before I started my walk, I worked as a county inspector, and certain like fast food companies were almost paying as much as I was making. And it's just like so interesting seeing that shift in terms of how people or how these corporations, how businesses value employee time. And it sounds like a lot of your motivation for starting your business beyond just, I want to own my own thing, I want to create something, was creating a good space to work. Much like that very first job that you had with the first CEO that gave you that flexibility, that gave you that freedom, that gave you that, I'm not just a number, I'm not just a resource, I'm a partner in the mission of what we're trying to create here. And it sounds like a lot of people that are younger, that are starting businesses, take that as a core value of their business, of providing a great place to work beyond just basic pay and benefits.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to, again, when you treat your employees in a way that they're family or they're valued, then they're going to value your time. Because how many people are sitting in a corporate job right now making six figures surfing the web? That's what I want to avoid. I want you to be honest with yourself and with me. Hey, I'm just not feeling it today. That's cool. Go do something. Don't sit at your desk. Because what that's going to do is you do that for 3 days or a week, sitting at your desk doing nothing. How does that make you feel as an individual? What type of productivity or loss is the business truly having when we think you're working and you're not? And what type of benefit do we get out of that? I don't think there is any. And so, because you're lying not only to your company, but to yourself that I'm going to go in and do something or be productive. I think there's just like almost mental gymnastics that you have to play with yourself to go into work every day if you don't want to be there. So I would rather provide something that people enjoy working at and recognize that, if they get an opportunity to do something outside of work, then take it. I'm going to work really hard because it's my thing. I want you to work really hard because I want you to feel like you're a part of that and you're part of the system that we are implementing together. I've toyed around, because I'm a small company and I'm young and I'm able to kind of try different things. The other interesting aspect when we start talking about like corporate structures or like business structures is there's generally this like pyramid that you have where you have the CEO and the CEO has, a manager under them or like a series of managers under them. And then they all manage these employees under them, right? And it can trickle down depending on how large your organization is. And the way I've been trying to structure and like talk about jobs in our company is basically everybody has a job, but it's linear. I, as the owner operator, have the same type of responsibilities as, my junior web developer that started with us. My kind of job structure is to manage and delegate tasks, but I encourage those people to then say, that doesn't make any sense to me. Or don't you think we should do it this other way? Because it increases, if you are willing as a manager, as a owner, to listen to your employees that are actually doing a majority of the work, you're going to see an increase of ideas that can help produce better and more efficient products long term.
Yeah, I really think a lot of that just goes back to like a big theme of what we've been talking about is respect. Mm-hmm. Like treating them as an adult, treating them as a member of the team, as a partner rather than a cog, rather than just employee number 7, right? Like right. Being willing to, and I think that a lot of that is humility, being able to, as the owner, talk to the junior spec and like, hey, what are you seeing? Your boots on the ground. You have a very different, you're in this 40 hours a week, right? Mm-hmm. You're seeing what's actually going on. Like, tell me about your perspective. What can we do better? How can we improve this? And just being able to really take that as a valued opinion and observation, because again, that's going to raise up everybody else, not just that individual, but make everybody more productive, make everybody more efficient so that you guys can achieve the overall mission of what you're trying to do and provide value to the customers, and also make sure you guys can get to the next year and beyond. Hey everyone, just a quick message. You know that my mission with this podcast is to share stories of influence and impact so that we can help more people help more people. But to do that, I need your support. Please rate, review, and share this podcast. If I could ask for just one favor, it's to just leave a review. It takes about 10 seconds and a few clicks, but it means the world to me and could inspire someone else to make a difference. Thank you so much. Now back to the show.
When you're hearing those people talk, I think it's also important to like read between the lines a little bit too. When I was at my last company, I was very blunt because I felt like they didn't hear me anymore. But I think employees will tell you without telling you things sometimes. Like one of my biggest struggles was, like I said, them not valuing my time. And we would take an entire 2 sprints, which was the equivalent of 2 months off of doing things. And I said, hey, in this 2 months, why don't we improve all of these bugs? Like we don't have anything going on. Let's go ahead and fix all these bugs. And they literally said no to me. I was like, why do you not want to improve the product? So now I'm starting to think like, is there something, are they trying to get rid of me? Or is it to do with they just don't want to do anything because it's the holidays? And there's these weird kind of ideas around that. But like my whole goal behind fixing those bugs was because it was causing downage issues. So not only was it a problem for me because now I'm on down calls all the time and I get back into that 60-hour work week, but I also like it was terrible for the customers. So the customers were complaining about this stuff. I was complaining about this stuff. And the only people that were fine with it were upper management for some reason. And they saw it more of a risk to fix things than it was to make things maintainable long term. And I will say, we're talking a lot about business for software development. It is a software development in business is a very, very different style of not only management, but like understanding where value comes from. And it's a big reason why I have started, or our company has started consulting for other firms. Basically, like a firm comes in, maybe they have a application that they provide for other customers, or it's just an internal application. I think businesses, CTO, or like businesses or management that's never worked in software development have a hard time managing that because it's such like an abstract thing. And it's also very hard to equate productivity. Like you can see that with Twitter or X when Elon Musk came in. He started saying, it was like a big joke with my developer friends and I, hey, because he said, we're going to manage productivity based on how many lines of code you write. And he fired some of the top level engineers at Twitter. Now, if you're a software developer and you hear that, the number of lines of code that I write is my productivity. There's kind of two ways that goes. It's either, oh, okay, you need me to write something super inefficient? Okay, no problem. So I'll write a bunch of code so I look really productive because that's how you're like measuring my success. The other side of it is if it like things that are extremely complex take a lot of time for you to think about it in your head, gather business requirements, do back-end research of it to ensure that you're doing things securely, doing things efficiently. So there are entire weeks sometimes that I don't code at all. And, that to a lot of business people who've never worked inside of the tech field see that as, oh, you were just wasting time. You didn't do anything. You didn't write anything, And I think when you have management that understands what you do, they understand, hey, maybe today is just a sit around and think about how I'm going to do that. Because as soon as you start executing the code, you've kind of backed yourself into this like structure. It's almost like building a house, right? So if I'm going to build a house, I need to plan out where my foundation is. I'm going to plan out where, all of our support beams are before we go and we start building the house. And a lot of people don't view it that way. And instead they just want the house, but they don't care about the foundation. They don't care about support beams. And it's also the idea of like having that like long-term goal when you talk about like whether it's your business or your application that you're building. You have to understand, where am I going with this? And so I try to like take a lot of the practices that I learned in development and like building out extremely large, complicated, and complex systems, and I try to like apply that to business, right? Like I understand that we do need to get the sprint done. We need the 2 weeks that needs to be done. But we also have to understand where is that 2 weeks going. So I think if you apply that to like the business side of it, you're kind of like, well, we have this client, but really in 5 years, I want to be away from like individual clients, and maybe we're writing our own applications and managing and structuring those. So how do we get to that? And then working with your team and like allowing them to contribute to the success of your company. So when when I think that is like a issue when it comes to business, is like short-sightedness, because if you don't have a plan for where you're going, you're never going to get anywhere. You're going to chase your tail. You're going to be worried about this break fix or that break fix, and that can be in all sorts of ways. Like, how do I manage? I'm seeing tons of my employees leave. So instead of trying to keep people there and improving the ability for them to be successful or for them to be excited to work there, you're just churning out people. And that's not productive for anyone. So I think a big takeaway is kind of when you are, whether you've started your company and you're 20 years in, or you're just starting today, just make sure that you have goals for this foreseeable future. And it's okay if those goals change, like I could have a 5-year goal. In fact, when I started my company, I had a 5-year goal. And, I'm at 5 years now, and it is very different than what I wanted to be at. So I think it's good to reassess year over year. Where are you going? What have you done? And what have you done to get to where you want to be? And taking those type of goals, they can be light goals where they're not, we have to do this. It's just gives your company direction a little bit. And I would also encourage your managers, like if you have management that you're taking, that you're in charge of, make sure that your managers also have a goal for their teams. Because without, you could have everything up in your head and have a view of how to get there, but you need to work with them so that everyone's visions are aligned so that you guys can be successful in business.
And I think that with that being said, it's mission and vision and alignment are something that I'm very passionate about, and I really believe is really what is necessary for a business to grow, for an organization to last, whether a nonprofit or an LLC or a sole proprietorship, right? It's more than just we're here to make money. Sure, you need to make money to survive, to get through quarter one and quarter two, and to get to that 5-year milestone. But if you're going to make it beyond that, like there really is a lot more that goes into it. And I feel like that is something that a lot of, especially in the corporate world that I've seen, what I've heard, where they kind of just go, okay, well, we're just focused on getting it to next month. And that's where those weird, I guess, milestones of, not even milestones, I don't think that's the right word, those weird rules that they come up with, right? Oh, well, your productivity is based off of how many lines of code you write. It's dependent on how often I walk by your desk and you're not staring at a screen doing something, right? That's been something I've been told before is look busy. Like, what do you mean look busy? Like, that's the dumbest thing. Like, I would rather get all my stuff done by 3 and leave. Why can't I do that? Like, I'm wasting just as much time as I could be going home and running errands, doing things at home that I want to do, getting off early. And I really feel like that's like the big takeaway from today's call, from what I'm having is, I guess, treat your employees with respect, listen to them, truly listen to them, and build a relationship based in honesty, in candor, in having that like individual responsibility for the employee to do what they need to do, what they were hired for, but then also for you to take that servant leadership role and say, hey, you're a person too. These are the things I need from you. This is what I want to, the value I want you to create. These are the tools that you need to do it. If you got it done, you got it done. Like, thanks. Go skydive. Go do these other things. Because again, what you were saying earlier, otherwise they're just going to see you as a stepping stone. They're going to leave after a year or two, and then you're going to start all over again. Whereas now you have this loyal employee, it sounds like, that's been there for 3.5 years, that you see as, you know, a part of the business, not just a means to an end.
And recognize their value and ensure that you are providing the tools for them to be successful, feel valuable, and grow at your company. And that doesn't necessarily have to mean a management position. That could just be providing the time and saying, hey, as part of your leftover time for this week, I know that I only gave you 30 hours of work and you have 4 additional hours. I want you to take that time and like teach yourself something new. I want you to grow as a professional. And it's almost true that you want to view your employees as you are growing them so that they can leave and go and be successful somewhere else. When you treat them that way, you don't have to necessarily say that to people, but when you treat them in that way, like a teacher, a mentor, then they're going to want to stay with you. But you're also going to be providing them the tools that they become better year over year for you. And they're going to provide more value long term.
Exactly. And I think that's the mentality that I had, because I'm trying to find some kind of intern to help me out with a couple things, and I guess intern would be the best thing for right now, what I'm looking for with where I'm at with my business. But I'm like, I want to have that conversation with them. Like, hey, where do you want to go? How can I align what I need from you, what the help I need, with your goals so that you can leave here way better off than when you came? How can I, as a leader, as the CEO, as the business owner, build you up as best as I can that still aligns with both of our goals? Like, it's not mutually exclusive. Like, it can be beneficial on both sides.
Sure.
And then that's going to be what works the best, in my opinion, long term. And it sounds like that's true based off of your experience.
Yeah, based off of my experience, that's very true. And be willing to change too. If you see a way that you can pivot and be more successful, or like move in a direction that you didn't expect to go, I think that's a really positive thing. I think the year, or 2020 with COVID, was the word of the year was pivot. Right? Like, how are you going to pivot your company? And I think that that's like a strong and like valuable lesson that especially young entrepreneurs can learn when they are first starting. You haven't established anything yet. You may have an idea of where you want to go, but let life and the world help guide you to where you need to go. I never thought I would be, a consultant at a very large nonprofit here. That was not where I was planning on being, and having my company run as like a consulting firm. But, I'm very thankful and grateful, and I love going into work every day. It's such a nice relief after, I left my last job. So, and provide that for other people. I think if we can do one thing in this world while we're here, it's to try and make it slightly better for other people, right? So
I think that's a beautiful way to end off this episode. Make the world better, help more people, help more people. I think that's really the message overall that I want folks to walk away with from this podcast as a whole. So Star, if people want to work with you or learn more about you and your company, where would be the best place for them to find you?
They can check us out on LinkedIn, or they can look us up at skylabstechnology.io.
Perfect, Star. All right. Well, all that information will be down in the show notes, but I super appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk to us and share your thoughts on employee-employer relationships and how that is really just the catalyst for success and how business is moving in the future. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Within Range Coaching Podcast. We really hope that you found our discussion insightful and thought-provoking. Today, we covered the importance of balancing short-term productivity with your long-term vision, the pitfalls of measuring success solely by lines of code, and the critical need to value and invest in your employees. Remember that fostering an environment of respect and growth not only benefits your team, but also drives the long-term success of your business. Join us next time for more stories from folks I've met along my journey across the country. And as always, remember to have fun, stay safe, and be yourself. I'll catch you in the next one.